How's it going, guys? It's Mark here from Strength Camp, and in this little interview, we're going to talk with my friend Jim. We're going to gym down in Sarasota, Palmetto. What do you call it?
Palmetto.
Palmetto, let's say Palmetto, CrossFit Havoc. And I'll actually allow him to introduce himself a little bit and how long he's been in the sport of weightlifting, strength training, and we'll kind of go from there. So
yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, I started lifting weights when I was 13, back in 1993. Joined a regular gym, just kind of tried to do some bodybuilding stuff. Then I got into powerlifting, did that for, I don't know, 3-4 years. And I started to kind of want to get outside of powerlifting, try to do more, trying to diversify myself a little bit. So I started combining different aspects of strength training. Try to do more athletic stuff, more plyometrics, things like that. Then I found CrossFit. Then I started doing CrossFit. Then I started combining my passion for powerlifting into CrossFit. So I kind of had like a bias towards strength. And then I found Olympic weightlifting. This was when I was about 26 or 27. And then I really kind of fell in love with that because I could combine the athletic portion of strength training, like just being explosive and things like that, and being able to get into positions and more than kind of just doing a deadlift, grabbing the bar and standing up. There's a lot more to weightlifting. There's a lot more to doing snatches and cleans than just grabbing the bar and going with it. You got to really focus on getting into those positions. So I kind of developed kind of like when people fall in love with golf because they are trying to chasing that perfect swing.
Yeah.
Right. So you do it and you screw up and you're like, I got to try again until I get it right. And so that's what I kind of found in weightlifting. So I've been doing weightlifting now for almost 10 years.
Cool.
Competed in it, 7-8 times. Did pretty good.
Yeah.
So nothing spectacular, but I really enjoy the sport.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you right off the bat was you entered the sport a little bit older.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of people do now. They find out about, let's say, CrossFit, or as weightlifting becomes more popular, they kind of get into it that way. So what do you think was really helpful for you starting off as, let's say, an older weightlifter? Was it like a specific mentor or coach you had, or like a mindset you approached it with? What was it that really helped you at the beginning?
Sure. Well, I was pretty lucky actually, because I came into the sport of weightlifting with a background in strength. So one of the things that I've never gotten buried by a clean before because I've never been fast enough to catch a weight that I can't stand up with.
Yeah.
Right. If I can catch it, I can stand up with it because I have that background in strength. So that was pretty beneficial for me. I kind of had a leg up on a couple things by living where I did. I lived close to a guy named Glenn Pendlay, and I got to go down to his gym and train maybe, I don't know, about a dozen times, and he taught me quite a few things about how to move a barbell. It wasn't, I didn't get to actually get coached by him consistently every week, but I got to drive down there and kind of get tips from him and then bring it home and do it on my own.
Yeah. Were there other lifters there at the same time as you? Or?
Yeah, Donnie Schenkel.
Okay.
Another guy named Caleb Ward. So they were pretty high level lifters.
Yeah.
So just watching those guys, how they move, and it was inspirational. Like seeing guys doing that, I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. I want to try to get there. Still trying. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that do you think training in that team atmosphere is something that's really integral to being a weightlifter, or was that something that you were able to do? Because you said you only went down a dozen times.
Yeah.
So were you training by yourself a lot?
I did the majority of my weightlifting in my garage by myself.
Okay.
And this was right at the beginning of YouTube, when YouTube was kind of first starting. So
Right.
wasn't a whole lot of stuff out there
Yeah.
about lifting weights and how to do it, and there wasn't a dozen tutorials on how to do this type of jerk or this type of lift. So I kind of had to really pay attention when I was down there at Glenn's place and take a lot of mental notes. I would have written it down, but I didn't want to seem like a dork. But so yeah, I had to really try hard to remember everything that he said and on all the cues that he said. And you can't remember everything, so I just remembered a couple real basic things that I felt were the most important. Things that really stuck out in my head about positions and about when to relax and when to pull and when to get tight and those types of things.
Right.
So
yeah, because now there's like a plethora of knowledge out there, and do you think that, to me, sometimes that kind of overwhelms me as I started off in weightlifting. I know I stuck with one program for an entire year, which really helped, but I know for people starting off, like, they don't know where to begin because there's too many voices kind of telling them.
How do you know? How do you know? Because you have one guy who's an expert, and then you have another guy who's an expert. This guy clean and jerked a really impressive weight. This guy snatched a really impressive weight. Does that mean they know what they're talking about? Maybe.
Yeah.
How do you find out if they know what they're talking about? You try the program. If it doesn't work for you, then okay, well, it didn't work. So you try something else. And what I feel like people do wrong is what I just said there, didn't work for you. Maybe it didn't work for you because you didn't do it right. Maybe you didn't follow it for long enough. Maybe your percentages were a little bit off. Maybe your positions have been off the whole time and you didn't have a set of eyes on you, so you didn't realize, well, I'm doing these pulls wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not.
You're just making yourself better at being worse.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's better to do one good light lift one time than thousands of bad heavy lifts.
Yeah.
Because you're just integrating bad patterns over and over and over again. So it's going to be very, very difficult to kind of back off from that and then relearn.
Yeah.
When people come into my place and I ask them, have you ever done any weightlifting before? And they say, no. I'm like, okay, great.
Perfect.
Because you're a clean slate, I don't have to, you don't have to unlearn, relearn. You just have to learn once.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I just read an interview with someone in which they were talking about training with a couple of really high-level Russian lifters, and it was this woman and her coach, and they asked this guy, what are your maxes? And he told them what the maxes were, but then when he went to perform them, they're like, that's not your max. Like, that's too heavy. You're training the wrong thing. So what they wanted in weightlifting was your max to be the maximal weight you could do perfectly with your technique and everything there. And I think for a lot of people starting off, that's another thing that they run into is they're chasing that number. And I'm sure you've experienced it as well, like your ego gets in the way. And for me, only recently I've kind of had to dial back a little bit and be like, focus more on, like you said, the positions as opposed to how much weight you're lifting.
You know, it's one of the things that I feel like a lot of, especially a lot of younger lifters, is there's a lot of people that are really strong out there, and because of the day and age that we live, you can see all of it. You can see CJ Cummings clean and jerking 175 kilos at 15 years old, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get stronger, right? And so what happens is, I feel like people get kind of greedy or impatient, right? Not greedy, but impatient, right?
They want it now.
They want it now, right?
They want to hop in a microwave.
They just want. They want to. I want to put 200 kilos on my back, and I want to be able to squat it. Well, guess what, man? You got to pay your dues. You can't just expect the numbers to pile on. Well, I've been training for 3 months. Where's my squat? Where's my, I need my 400-pound squat. I need my 300-pound clean.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen like that. For some people, it does.
Right.
And those are the outliers. Those are the CJ Cummings.
That's what can frustrate you, in a sense.
Yeah. So you see,
looking in from the outside in.
Right. You see all these guys succeeding. All these guys. It's really only a handful of guys and girls that are doing these crazy things. So you see that, and then it just feels internally, if you're a driven athlete, like I need to get there, and I need to get there now.
Right.
But you have to pay your dues. You have to take the time to learn how to actually do the lifts the right way. And then once you learn how to do the lifts the right way, then start thinking about adding weights to your bar.
Right. So. Yeah. And that's something, even when I was training people one-on-one more often, they would always ask me like, when am I gonna, let's say, squat a certain number, or when am I gonna have abs? And after a while, my response would just be, when you deserve it.
Yeah,
you'll get it when you deserve it.
Perfect.
And like you said, it takes years and years of hard work. So for me, looking at certain people weightlifting, you get into that mindset of, I want to lift that heavy now. But what I don't realize is you've been powerlifting and doing strength training for how many years?
23.
23, and I got into it maybe 5 years ago. So
I got some time.
You got a little bit of time. So I think that's something also that gets overlooked is just the long-term approach to it. Especially with weightlifting, where it's such a technical sport.
It's so technical. I referred to golf earlier, and that's what I say this a lot. I always kind of compare weightlifting to golf because it's not the guy that's strongest that hits the ball the furthest.
Right.
It's the guy that's best at swinging the club, right? And it's the same thing in weightlifting. You can be ridiculously strong, have a great base of strength, but if you can't get into an overhead squat and keep your feet on the ground, guess what? You're not going to be able to do a good snatch. You're not going to be able to have any type of impressive numbers.
Yeah.
If you can push press 400 pounds, there's guys that can push press mid fours that can't jerk 300 pounds because they can't not press out. And guess what? That strength is great. There it is. But if you don't know how to harness it, if you don't know how to actually use it the right way to be successful in the sport, you'll never be successful in the sport.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think there's two sides of it too, right? Because some people will be really technically sound, but they don't have the strength, and other people may be really strong, but they just don't have that technical prowess or mobility to put it all together. So it really is a sport of putting both of those things together, which for people in this day and age, I feel like that's one of the hardest things to do is get your mobility in line with your strength, especially with program hopping, listening to different people.
There you go.
You just don't spend that period of time long enough to get strong or to master a skill. So in terms of programming, what would you say for someone, let's say just starting out, what would you suggest to, let's say someone who maybe is trained at like CrossFit or just in a regular gym for a year, trying to build their strength a little bit, and now they want to jump into weightlifting as their main focus?
Well, let's say that they trained at LA Fitness for a year, right? And they see a video and they see, we'll go with CJ Cummings again. They see him clean and jerk a ton of weight, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'd like to try to do that. And the first thing you need to do is kind of assess yourself, kind of see where you're at, right? Maybe take some videos of yourself and watch yourself try to perform the lifts. Odds are you're just going to be awful. It's going to be really bad.
Especially when you look back a year
later. If you compare the video of yourself trying to do the lifts without any type of coaching to somebody who's had tons and tons of coaching, you're going to see some glaring differences, right? The next thing you should do is try to find somebody to coach you. And that's so important. It's so important to try to find someone who knows about the sport to give you some guidance, right? Odds are the first thing that they're going to say is not going to be, okay, let's grab a bar and let's start working on doing snatches and working on doing clean and jerks.
Let's max out your snatch today.
Right, that's exactly. They're gonna assess your actual strength, your actual mobility with other movements. Well, let's see how you do a deadlift. Let's see how you do a back squat or a front squat or an overhead squat. Let's see how high you can jump. Let's see how powerful you are, right? Things like that. And then from there, kind of build a base of just super basic strength, right? Just get stronger, get able to hold a position of that barbell over your head, and not feel
not
feel like that bar's going to fall down onto the ground. It's so basic and it's not exciting. Like the beginning is not exciting at all.
That's really important.
But you have to pay your dues. You have to go through it. Everybody everybody does that. Anybody who's successful in the sport of weightlifting has paid their dues.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that when you're starting, that you're not just going to get that 100-kilo snatch in a year. Maybe you will, but you're not normal. Like, you're not.
We don't like those people.
Right. Exactly.
Go hide yourself in the cave and live by yourself.
Right. So just realize that it's probably going to be a slow process. You're going to miss way more lifts than you make. It's just going to happen. You're going to miss all the time, and it's going to be frustrating. And you're going to, at certain points, hate weightlifting. You're going to think it's an awful idea. You're going to think this is the dumbest thing. Why don't I just freaking put the bar on the ground and stand up with it? I can just do that, and I can succeed, right?
Yeah.
But if you really are passionate about getting good at the sport, you've got to, like I said, kind of get a feel for where you're at, get some coaching, and then pay your dues as far as learning.
Sticking with one.
Yes, don't hop from coach to coach to coach to coach, because you're going to hear good advice from this guy. You're going to hear good advice from this guy, but they might not be the exact same thing. Right. And the advice that this guy gives, can work, right? Maybe in their method.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hop from this method to this method and then back and forth, then the chain of events isn't going to lead you to success.
Yeah.
It's gonna muddle the your brain, and you're just gonna be like, I'm lost.
Yeah.
And it's because you're not sticking with one thing.
Yeah, and essentially the precursor to starting training is going to be just really basic movements.
Yeah.
Assessing your positions, getting comfortable, not being afraid to have a bar over your head.
Right.
Strengthening those positions, and then maybe get into actual weightlifting. But that process could take months, if not a long time for some people.
Yeah. If you're planning on getting good, if you're planning on getting really good at weightlifting,
Which is the point.
which is exactly the point. If you're planning on getting good at it, then it shouldn't matter to you that it's taken you, an extra 5 or 6 months to do something, because in the back of your head you should know, like, okay, maybe it's just taking me longer, but I look damn good doing this, right? When I do my jerks, I'm not pressing them out. I'm not catching it and then being off balance. I'm nailing these things.
Mm-hmm.
And if it looks good in weightlifting, it is good.
Yep.
Right? If it looks good, it is good. Pretty much all the time.
Yeah.
So if you can make a lift look beautiful, then you're probably gonna make the lift.
It's probably going to feel good too.
It's gonna feel incredible.
It feels really good.
It feels there's just something magical about taking a heavy weight and literally throwing it up in the air, catching it over your head when you got your freaking butt touching your ankles.
Yeah.
That is just, it just
It's
blows.
pretty badass.
Yeah, it's incredible. And once you do it once with a decent load, you want to do it again.
Yeah.
You want to do it again and again and again.
Many times.
Yes.
Yes. It's funny too, because I went through, I've only been lifting for a little over a year now, Olympic weightlifting for only a year now. And there was a period there of like maybe a month, 2 months, where it was just like very depressing and like a dark place to be in my training, because it didn't feel good. It didn't really look good compared to what I wanted it to look like. And I was missing a lot of lifts. I felt like I wasn't getting stronger. But more recently, maybe the last 2 or 3 weeks of my training, things have just started to click a little bit. Like, I've started to feel what a snatch should feel like, what it should feel like to stay over the bar, catch it in a solid position at the bottom, and it feels great. But have you had a similar experience like that, where it's kind of like it was just an awful time to train, like you hated your training?
So this is pretty embarrassing, but
Nice.
I don't.
I can probably be you an embarrassing story.
Well,
so
probably
don't
maybe.
feel too bad.
But I've broken. Well, it was probably broken, but I didn't want to go to the doctor because I just didn't want to know that I did that. But I severely injured my wrist doing a snatch. But it wasn't when I did the snatch. It was after I missed the snatch and then I punched a box
A wooden box.
A wooden
not
box.
a cardboard box.
Yes, not a cardboard box.
That's the problem.
A plyo box. I punched a plyo box after I missed the snatch.
How old were you at this time?
I was 30-something.
Okay, and we're back. And Jim was just telling us about how, as a grown man, he punched a hard wooden box out of frustration. Continue, Jim.
Yes. So, so I missed a snatch. Well, I missed many snatches.
Yeah.
And then after the frustration of consistently missing, I took my fist and I put it into a box, and then I hurt myself really bad, and then I couldn't lift weights because I hurt myself.
So at this point, you were a grown man. You had children. You were married.
Yes.
Yes, and you were still.
And I was still
freaking out.
Freaking out because I was consistently missing this weight that was not a challenging weight for me, or it shouldn't have been that day. And so when the bar just kind of bites back at you and says, "No, man, you ain't lifting me today."
Yeah.
It's like, I really want to lift you, but you won't let me, or you won't let me. Something won't let me lift that bar, and then I just, it's a very, it messes with your head.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have lots of days where you come into the gym and you just feel awful. Mm-hmm. You just feel like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm even going to touch this bar right now, because I'm not going to succeed. The days like that, the days where you feel like you're not going to succeed, can end up being awesome days. I've had days where I come into the gym and it's just like, oh gosh, I feel bad. I don't feel like doing this stuff today. But I'm like, all right, I'll start swinging my legs and start getting ready to do it.
Yeah.
And then 15 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I can train. Mm-hmm. And then, sometimes you hit PRs on those days. Sometimes you do exactly what you thought you were going to do, and you do really bad. Yeah. But you never know. You never know until you start, getting going and actually give yourself a chance to
succeed or fail.
Succeed or fail.
Yeah.
Exactly.